let's talk about efficiency here. All right. So how do we move them? Move them with a little dolly here. A little simple dolly. All right. Make these in your shop. And so we come up. This is 10 feet by 12 feet by 2 feet high. You come up to it. Get the edges under. Use your body. A lot of you know, mechanical action here. Use your body. Okay, very smooth, simple motion. Now that breaks the ground contact. Gets that back edge on wheels. Take the feeder out. I'm not going to move it a whole piece, but I'll move it enough so you can see the wheel. And then the chickens just walk to the next spot. Okay?
Something like this costs a building and just a ballpark.
If you buy everything brand new for one of these shelters, it's $300. The most expensive thing is this aluminum. And a lot of people try to fudge with either steel roofing, which adds 200 pounds. And I've seen a lot of shelters grown up into weeds in the backside of a barn, and then heard the farmer tell me about his hernia operations. The whole key here is light. Okay, that's what makes it work. And then the other thing is if you use now obviously the water bucket. I mean, they've just been moved this morning and just been serviced. Tomorrow morning when they're serviced, we do the water so that the water is all is down pretty low, so you don't have all the weight of that water bucket on you. There are strategic things you do to make it lighter, but you can see how we move it. Takes 60 seconds. 60 seconds to move one. So one person can move 60 of these in 1 hour. I had a couple of celebrity chefs from Ireland here a month ago. They were doing a show, videoing a show. They wanted to video it here. And, we were out talking about these chickens, and I said, yeah, I can move these in 1 minute. And they just, no, it's impossible. They said, we don't believe it. And so I said, well, here, let me move one for you. So one guy got out of his smartphone, put it on a stopwatch, and they said, get set, go, and then I took the feeder out, put the dolly under, moved it, put the feeder back in, basically did the, the calf rope thing, hands in the air, 37 seconds, okay? So our benchmark here is 60 seconds per shelter, which means one person can move 5,000 birds in an hour.
How many birds are in a pound?
75.
And what were the dimensions?
10 by 12 by 2 feet high. I don't know another model, and some of you I'm sure are seeing some of these, big prairie schooner and different kinds of, we got to make these big, models. Let me tell you something. I haven't seen anybody able to move as easy and fast, and they all have to be moved with a big tractor or a big machine. Here, it's just me. It's quiet, And I actually, I very much enjoy moving. I don't get to move them much anymore because all these young people get them moved before I can get there. But I very much enjoy moving them because I know it makes the chickens so happy. People say, well, why are you so happy all the time? Well, how many people get to wake up in the morning and go make these many beings happy every day? Okay? Very cool.
How many days do they spend in there?
Well, they come out here between 2 and 3 weeks, and then they're dressed at roughly 8 weeks or 9 weeks. So they're out here for roughly 5 weeks out here. So if you take 5 weeks, which is 35 days, at 75 birds per shelter times all the daily moves during that 35 days, what you end up with is every 500 birds covers 1 acre of pasture. And we only touch an acre once a year. They're only on a given spot 1 day a year, because they're putting down 200 pounds of nitrogen per spot. Okay, and if we doubled it up in a year, it would be too much nitrogen for the soil to metabolize. And the soil, you know, if it gets too much nitrogen, it doesn't care whether it's organic, inorganic, or otherwise. It's going to go somewhere, and the vaporized is going to go somewhere. So you can look back. You see the squares. You know, here's well, of course, this was just this morning. So here's yesterday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it's pretty much, you know, recuperated. All right.
Will this pasture do chickens
Yeah.
again next year?
Excuse me.
Chickens every year in this pasture?
We have been running chickens in this field and the other field over here, and there's another. We've just moved half of these shelters from here over to the far end of the other field, and they're starting back. And then when these are done, these will join them and come back. So we use these two fields. They're high, so they get good drainage. We run them down in the low fields, but you know, if you get a bunch of rain, then you're in a swamp, and it's just not good. So chickens like it dry. I mean, chickens love a drought. They don't ever do better than when you have a drought. Of course, the cows like not a drought because that grows more grass. So again, this kind of, you know, spreads out your risks a little bit by having something that likes a drought and something likes it dry and something likes it more wet.
How long do your pens usually hold up? Like when you say you build a new one, what's the life expectancy?
Yeah, we see these numbers on here, 16.
Right.
This is because this was in a NASCAR competition. No. This particular one, you see the numbers on it. These were built originally as layer shelters back when we added the layers before the Millennium Feathernet model was developed. So this shelter is 20 years old.
Same wood.
Same wood. Well, the beauty of this is that they're very repairable. So if something happens to break, you just scab on a piece of wood. You can see a scab right over there. If you see right here, you see this scab right here, that piece cracked. That's the beauty. We don't recommend building anything out of PVC because PVC, if it breaks, you can't fix it. But here with wood, you know, we can fix it. Now there is a very specific way we build these. Of course, this is a real old one. You know, there are newer ones. This one obviously is a little newer here. So we use the raw material we get are 1x6s and 2x4s, pressure treated, and then we cut them on the table saw or the sawmill, and we cut them either halves or thirds on the 1x6s and in half on the 2x4s, and a 2x4 in half gives you a 2x2 for all these corners, and for the brace that goes across here that the bucket, you know, that the water hangs on, give you a little more weight, a little more strength. The 1x6s cut in thirds are all the braces, and the 1x6s cut in halves are the long pieces, the 10s and the 12s. So, you know, everything is built. The bottom two edges are 2x2s to give you some truth, because that's where the dolly, you know, hits them all the time. So everything is built just strong enough.
Yeah, we made ours way easy.
That is the number. That's the number one, problem that people have duplicating this. Is most people who come to this, they've been in sheep or goats or cows or something, and they're thinking sheep, goats, cows, you know, 2x4s and big stuff. This is chickens. You know, this is tinker toy stuff. All right. And the lighter you make them, the easier they are to move, the faster you can move them, the more, the younger your kids can move them, okay? And so you want these things to be as light as possible so you can move them very easily. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the mistakes people make when they try to replicate it?
Mistakes people make?
Yeah, like you said, don't use PVC.
All right, yeah, don't use PVC. Don't make them bigger than you can handle yourself very easily. The reason that they're, you know, if we could physically handle a 12 by 12, we'd make them 12 by 12. But this is as big as a person can easily handle, okay? So that's why they're this size. And you want them as big as you can handle. Some people want to make them real small. You're going to make a little 8 by 8 or something. But it takes just as long to move an 8 by 8 as a 10 by 12. So you might as well make it as big as you can, you know, physically handle.
Just look for a to come out.
You know, I already mentioned the number one was making them too heavy. You know, using 2x4s, using big stuff. Using metal, using steel or canvas on this roof. Metal is heavy, canvas is hot. You know, a tent on a hot day, it's heat absorptive. The beauty of the aluminum is it's as light as canvas, but it's highly reflective and it can never rust. So this aluminum essentially lasts forever. I mean, you can see some of these doors, they've been on shelters. Yeah, look, it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? That's the next thing, is people that sit here and spend all day pulling lint out of their belly button trying to make sure it's all just perfect. You know, like it can go on the front page of Southern Living magazine. The chickens don't care. They really don't care. And so when you're fabricating these things, I mean, notice my braces. I mean, they're not all just cut perfectly. You use square corners, okay, so it tips up a little bit. Very forgiving. I mean, this whole thing is extremely forgiving. And of course, the reason that this one comes over to here and this doesn't come to the middle, so people say, oh, man, that ain't bilaterally symmetrical. How can you have a thing, you know, that's not bilaterally symmetrical? Well, the reason is because this roofing only comes 4.5 feet in width. That's 54 inches, all right? Well, this shelter is 10 feet wide. 54 inches doesn't come clear to the center. So you know what kind of mess you'd be in if you tried to make this bilaterally symmetrical. So we don't worry about it. We have a 6-foot door. We make this side 6.5 feet, this side 4.5, or 5.5. I'm sorry. This is 5.5. That's 4.5. 5.5, 4.5 makes 10. And so being overly meticulous, overly anal about, you know, everything being just perfect and all that. It doesn't have to be, okay? And you know, another one is probably, you know, not giving them enough ventilation. In the summertime, you see we take the back ends off, and that becomes a breezeway through there. So I mean, today it's really nice, but boy, last, you know, Monday it was 90 something out here. It was hot. But the birds, because of this reflective, you get a thermal, you get a heat thermal, so that when you're on a hot day, it actually reflects the sun and actually sucks cool air through there like a breezeway. It creates a little thermal. So yeah, everything on here is extremely thought out. The you know, the wire here, that's another one that a lot of people miss. There's a wire. See this wire right here that goes across from side to side? You don't put that wire on the center sides, okay? Because there's nothing, it's a free span, there's nothing in the center, so that wire ties the edges together. And what happens, a lot of people is they put that wire on front to back, which works just as well structurally to put it on front to back, except that putting it in the middle gives you one more little obstruction to help move the chickens forward when you're moving them, okay, by going sideways like that. So those are
predator
Thank
losses?
you. Thank you very much.
Look like coyotes.
yeah. What about gaps?
Some of the gaps look like a coyote or a fox. You just kind of get in there and
We don't have. They're not that smart around here. We raise dumb coyotes. Actually, that's what these are. These. This is not just stuff out here lying around. These are plugs, so that if we have a big enough depression to be predator friendly, we can lay this down, you know, on the outside and make a little bit of an obstruction there. Okay, that's what these are. They're called plugs. Let's talk about predators a little bit. You see this goose over here. He's quiet now, but he has been carrying on a little bit. You heard him when we first came up. We try to have a guard goose with every set of poultry that's outside, and we have found them to be actually more effective than a dog. They're certainly easier to control and take care of. You don't have to feed them. They don't play with chickens and eat one once in a while, or you know, kill it just by playing with it. And they're pretty noisy, and they're on guard. Yeah, aren't you? And so the geese really buddy up with the chickens. It's quite amazing. And we don't have to train them. They naturally are drawn because, you know, they're birds of a feather. They flock together, right? They don't have to be the same species. And so it's a good thing. The geese will live for 40 years. They live twice as long as a dog, or 3 times. So, you know, if you have a good one, you know, dog, you know, gets arthritis at 13, you know, it starts to go downhill. Whereas a goose, they'll just keep on goosing.
You said somewhere 1 but not 2.
Yeah, 1 but not 2. If you have 2, then the 2 geese kind of pair up and get distracted with each other's stories and gossip and whatever. So just one, and then they're totally dedicated, and they're really funny to watch. You know, when you vacate their group of birds, they actually mope around like they're depressed until you bring them a new set of birds, and then they all perk up and they're real, you know, excited. So yeah, the geese are pretty cool. But these shelters, I know some of you might think, my land's in my country, they'd be torn to pieces. Let me talk about predators for just a minute. First of all, yes, a mink or a weasel could go through this crack for sure. In 50 years, I have only seen something inside twice. And that's not very often in 50 years with all the chickens we've raised. Why? Because if you're a predator, let's say you're a raccoon or a weasel or a skunk or a fox, you're not up where we are, right? You're down here, right? And you see those chickens in there, and you're going around here, and you can go around that shelter, right? Trying to get in, but it never occurs to you, oh, if I climbed up here, I could get in here, right? That never occurs. And so that has simply not been a problem, fortunately. So the top, we have found the top can be fairly, almost nonchalant about the top. It's down here around the edges. Now, a couple times in early years, we had some real serious predator issues a couple times, and I just came out here with some hardware cloth, 6 inches, and put it from here around to there, because that's where they sleep, in here around the feeder lots of times. I just brought it right up here, and that stopped it right now. In other words, this was like probably a raccoon reaching through. When they're real small, when they get bigger, it's not a problem. When they're real small, if we're sleeping up against this netting, a raccoon or something can come along and grab a wing or a feather through here, not get in, see? And then you come up and there's a dead chicken with missing a leg or a wing or something. Now, what we try to do is when we first bring them out is come up here the first couple of evenings, and we shush them. We try to push them so that they learn. Only takes a couple evenings so that they learn not to sleep down here. Usually, if you've got a group of 20 shelters out here, 18 of them will naturally sleep in the back, and 2 of them will sleep right up here. That's where you have your predators. Okay, so you just have to deal with the 2 that are the problem, and they'll figure it out. Next thing, we've grazed this with the cows in the last week to shorten the grass, because this short grass is very predator unfriendly. Skunks, possums, raccoons, they don't like getting out here in the short grass where they're vulnerable. A great horned owl come right down and pick up a skunk right out of here, okay? So they want to lurk around the edges, and that's why the first shelter up there is 10 feet away from the edge of the field to create a DMZ zone, if you will, so that the predators that are lurking along the edge of the field have to go through a vulnerable spot in order to get out here. That creates a bit of a deterrent. Next, notice the electric fence going along the edge of the field. That woods and goes on down into a riparian marshy area with a pond. All that area, that's off limits to cows. So there's a lot of duff and leaf mulch and all that to grow moles and voles and chipmunks and squirrels. The first line of defense against predators is to have a balanced enough ecosystem that you're actually feeding the carnivorous predators.